Welcome to the PowerPoint for Beginners course. This course is perfect for someone that's never used PowerPoint before, or even someone who has but just wants to know some more of the advanced features to make professional PowerPoint presentations. In this course, you'll learn how to use all of the tools necessary to create PowerPoint presentations. Alright, well, let's get started. In the next video, we'll take a quick look at keyboard shortcuts that can be used while you're creating your PowerPoint presentations, and then we'll learn how to download PowerPoint, and we'll launch the application and be on our way to create our PowerPoint presentation masterpieces. Before we actually download PowerPoint and launch the application, I wanted to go over some basic computer functions that we're going to utilize during this course. So, with computer keyboards, there are different key combinations that can be used as shortcuts. Things like Control-C for copying and Control-S for saving your projects. Here's a slide that can be referenced for the shortcut keys that will be used in this course. For Windows, you're going to be using the Control key plus specific letters, and then on the Mac it's the same concept except it'll be Command instead of the Control key plus the same letters. So just try to practice these shortcuts and get used to using them if you already aren't familiar with them, and it will really help you as you create your PowerPoint presentations. Before we jump into the PowerPoint application, I wanted to go over how you can get PowerPoint. Most of you probably already have it installed on your computer from your employer, but some of us may need actual personal copies. So, of course, you would just Google Microsoft PowerPoint, find the download link. So when this video was taken, it was 2016, and you can get a personal copy of PowerPoint for $110 for one PC. And of course, you would just buy it and download it. Once you have PowerPoint downloaded or already installed, you can go to your Start menu, search for PowerPoint, hit Enter, which will launch the application. The first thing you'll see are all of these different templates and themes. If you click on one, you can actually adjust the coloring for that template. And if you want to choose that specific template, then you say Create, and it will launch a brand new presentation with the selected template. For this course, we're going to just use a blank presentation. So to revert back to a different template, you can go to File, New, and then I'm just going to click Blank Presentation. So here we are on the PowerPoint application. We start off in the Home tab. The first thing I like to do when I get into my PowerPoint presentation is to have all of my fonts and colors all figured out before I start building upon my slides. Fonts are a night and day difference between the different PowerPoints that I've seen. Personally, I think when you're customizing a PowerPoint, to me, what stands out the most is the font. So definitely take some time and look through the different fonts to see which ones are your favorites. And you can actually purchase fonts, and there's some free ones you can download that aren't by default in your font library. Once you find a font and download it, you actually have to install it so that your computer can use it. So here I have one that I have downloaded on my computer, and all you have to do is right click on the font and then you install it. I already have this one installed, so it's going to complain, but it's as simple as that. It installs the font, and then when you open up your Microsoft products and you go through your fonts, you'll actually see that font that you installed available. So just remember that you're not limited to the fonts that you see by default in your product. And then once you decide on what font to use, then we can go to View, and then we're going to go to Slide Master. The Slide Master deck actually gives us the ability to pick our colors and fonts that we want to use for all of our slides. So if I go through all these slides in the master deck, these are all the different default slides that are available for you to use in PowerPoint. So if I were to use any of these types of slides integrated into PowerPoint, they would inherit the colors and fonts and themes from my master slide deck. So instead of having to change each slide individually for font and coloring, you can do it in here one time, and then as you build your PowerPoint presentation, everything will inherit these settings. So if you wanted to, you could go in here and pick different themes. I'm just going to stick with the basic default theme for this example. And then I'm going to pick my font. I kind of like the Arial font, so I'll select Arial for my font. And then if you look at any of the wording in any of my slides, you're going to see that they have the Arial font. You can also change the background style if you'd like to for all of your slides. And that's all I typically use the Slide Master for. I mainly am concerned about my fonts. I personally don't get too crazy with colors and themes, but you definitely can if you'd like to. So we have our font now. I'll go back to View, and to get back to our default view, I'll just go to Normal. And now I'm back here on my default slide, and if you click here, you can see that it's inherited the font settings that I chose in my Slide Master configuration. First, let's start by creating our title slide, one of the most important slides. This default slide here, if you actually click on New Slide, you can see the different themes that we have. The first slide is always going to default to the title slide, which is what we want since we want a title slide for this presentation. So for these examples, we're going to make this presentation about how to fish. So we'll say learn how to fish. If I wanted to move where the text was within this text box, I could go to align text. If I wanted to move it up a little higher, I could say align middle. I could put it up top if I want. I think the bottom was a little too low for me, so I'll put it to the middle. And now if I wanted to, I could put a subtitle. I actually prefer to have my title text and then like an image that has something to do with the presentation. So I'm going to left click on this box and just hit delete, so I have room for my image. And then we'll go to Insert, and then we have all these options for inserting different objects into our slide. We'll go over a lot of these later on in this course, but let's start by just inserting a picture. Now you could say pictures and choose one directly from your computer. My favorite option is online pictures, and I'll show you why. So right away it brings you up to a Google search tab here. I'll just say fishing, hit enter, and now I have all these images that I could click on and insert directly into my PowerPoint presentation. Now the coolest part about this searching feature is that it comes up automatically and it filters you to images that are under the Creative Commons license. So Creative Commons licensing allows you to reuse other people's work for tweaking or redistributing with your creation. So we actually have the ability to pick any of these images and feel confident that we can utilize them for our PowerPoint presentation. And to be honest, if you're just creating a presentation for work it's not going to be sent out on the internet and visible by a lot of people, you're probably okay to use whatever images you want, but I usually just use this. I most of the time can find exactly what I'm looking for. So I'm just going to pick this cool guy fishing here. I think that's a pretty sweet image. And I'll say insert. And just like that, I now have an image to use for my title slide. And then you can move it back and forth, and you'll see this red line pop up. That's the line you want to use to find out where the center is for that slide. You could actually also go to this align option and use that to align your image to the left, center, or right of your slide. Typically you're going to want it in the center, so I'll go align, and then we'll say align with center, and I'm confident that this is directly in the center of my slide. You could also go in here, I could rotate this image if I wanted to, so if you wanted it to face in the opposite direction. But I'm just going to leave it as the default. Okay, now that we have our title slide, I'm going to start inserting my actual slides that I'm going to use to present on this title. So I'll say new slide, and then I'm going to pick the theme of the slide. So the real basic theme that you'll end up using is probably title and content. I'll say title and content, and that has topic of the slide, and then of course the details for that topic. So we're going to make this one about fishing equipment. And then I can click to add text. I'll make my first bullet be fishing poles. And then I'm going to insert an image of a fishing pole. So I'll go to insert. We'll use our online trick again. I'll say fishing pole. Let's try this one up top. So if you click on the image and actually take this rotate icon, can rotate it 90 degrees or wherever you want to put it. So you see how when I move this over, since the fill in this image was white, it overlaps with my text. So I could fix that a couple ways. I could go to shape fill and say no fill if it's a type of image that I can adjust. This one I can't. So what I can do is I can go to arrange, and you can move what order your objects are in. So let's say I had 4 images placed on this slide and I wanted one image to be on top of another or behind another. I could actually click on the image and say send to back, and now it's behind my text. So now even though it has that white fill, it's layered and it's behind my text. So I can put it wherever I want, and I'm not going to have that white fill that's messing with my text there. Whoop. Send it back. Alright, so now I'm ready for my next bullet, so I'll move on down the line here. And next we need lures, of course, if we're going to go fishing. So I'll say lures, enter, and then to get rid of this bullet, I just hit backspace. If I want to get it back, you can go up here to bullets, or this is where you would pick if you wanted numbering. If I wanted to have a list of numbers, then I'm going to insert another image. So I'll find a good fishing lure image. Pick this one. Drag that under my lures. Try to make it evenly spaced from the text, like we have for our poles example. So now we have poles, we have lures. Alright, next we need a tackle box. If I can spell. Tackle box, and then backspace to get rid of our bullet. And then we'll do another online picture. So we get really good at getting online pictures. Tackle box. And I'm kind of liking this cartoony one, so let's go with that guy. Insert. Sometimes you may have it to where your image might just be short of fitting in your slide, so you can actually always adjust them across. You can stretch them, whatever you need to fit it into your area. Alright, so now that we have this slide, let's actually start at our title slide and go to slideshow, and we can actually preview our slideshow from the current slide or from the beginning. Since we're at the beginning, we'll say from current slide, and I'm just going to hit down to go through it. So you see that when I went to this first slide here, everything just popped up right onto my PowerPoint. Well, the more professional way to do it is use animations. With animations, you may have seen in other PowerPoint presentations where your text pops up one at a time as you're explaining it. So let's hit escape to get out of our slideshow preview. And now we're going to go over animations. Animations are probably one of my favorite things with PowerPoint. You can make things move across the screen. You can make things appear from the left, from the right, float in, float out. You can have custom animations. So if I wanted to make this fishing pole spin around in circles 10 times and then zoom out of the slide, I could do that, and I'll show you how to do some of those more advanced animations. But for this, typically what you're going to be doing is your text is going to be, animation to appear or fade in. So all these green ones that you see that you can choose from are animations for entrances, and then you have your emphasize animations, and then your exit. So this would be in, emphasize, out. Motion paths, you can do things like custom path to where you can actually mark exactly where you want your object to move within the slide. So for this, we're just going to make it so poles comes up first with a fade, and then lures, and then tackle box. So once we actually are presenting our slideshow, as we click down throughout our slides, we'll actually have those animations appear in order. So let's click on polls and we'll say we want it to be a fade in. And you see it has this number here, and that's defining which order this animation is going to appear. And then you can have it be on click or with previous or after previous. So it's going to be on click, so when I click on the slide, it will then appear. Well, let me shrink this up so it's easier to get to my images here. So for my poll, I want it to actually appear at the same time as my poll text. So I'll say fade, and you see it comes up with number 2. Well, I want it to come at the same time, so I'll say with previous, and that's saying appear with the previous animation. And I'll zoom through here and we'll do the same exact thing with the other ones. And I'll say previous, and we can preview our animation. And that's exactly what we want it to do. So now let's go to slideshow, say from the beginning. And now I'll click the down arrow on my keyboard. I have my title for my slide, and then as I click down, my objects are going to appear in my slide. You may have noticed when I first brought this up that you have the stuff that pops up on the bottom left here. There's some different options you can use with this. You can actually do Control H to get rid of it if you want. If you actually click on this, you could actually use a pen if you wanted, a highlighter, laser pointer. So let's say that you were doing your presentation, you want to point out something or circle something. You could use a laser pointer. I like using the pen. The pen option's pretty cool. You can change the color. When I'm talking without a PowerPoint, I use a lot of hand gestures, so I feel like even when I'm doing a PowerPoint presentation, I just have to do something. So sometimes I'll circle things or point to things with arrows. Just a pretty cool option if you want to do that sort of thing. And then you click on here, you can say erase all ink on slide, or you could actually erase it if you want to. So I'm going to hit escape again, go back to creating our PowerPoint. I'll just do new slide again, and it's going to be, again, looks like the theme is my title and content, just like I want it to be. This slide is going to be about attracting fish. This course is kind of a 2-for-1 deal. You get to learn PowerPoints and how to fish. And we'll talk about how to chum for fish. So I'm going to use this example to show you how to group different objects together and to use some of your shape options. So shapes are amazing. If you wanted arrows to point to something, I use arrows a lot actually in my presentations. If you wanted to just customly actually draw something, you could draw a curvy line if you wanted. You know what, actually for this, we'll actually make some water just to show you an example how you can use the custom, this is actually called the curve line shape option, but there's actually a freestyle one that's more of a scribble. Let's see. Freeform, and then there's a scribble one. I think the curve one's probably one of my favorite ones. You can actually make custom shapes if you want to by connecting those lines, and then you can fill it with different colors and do all types of stuff with the shape and curve option. So we're going to talk about chumming here, so I'm going to make my own custom little chum here. So I'm going to pick a circle option, and I'm going to make my chum, I picture chum being more like an orangish color, so I'll say shape fill with orange, and then I don't want there to be an outline, so I'll say no outline. So now I have this one little piece of chum. Well, I'm going to click on it, and I can either right click on it and say copy, and then right click again, and then hit paste. And I can repeat that over and over, since for my chum slide I want kind of like a big group of these chum pieces. Well, the easier way would be to use some of your keyboard shortcuts. Some computers may be different. Most of the time it's pretty standard, the keyboard shortcuts you can use. I'm going to say Control C, which is that's a shortcut to copy something. And then if I say Control V, that's going to paste things. So I can say Control C and then Control V, Control V, Control V, Control V, and it's just a really easy way to copy and paste stuff. So once you really get used to using Control C and Control V, it's going to really speed up adding certain objects like this in your PowerPoint slides. And then you can actually do Control X if you want to cut something. Probably the best shortcut is Control Z, which actually reverts the changes that you just made. So you can actually do that up here if you look at these arrows. You can say undo move or redo my cut. So I can go that way, or I can go back to so maybe on accident you bump your keyboard, or your kid comes up to play on your keyboard and actually delete something. You can just simply do Control Z and bring it right back. Okay, so now I have all these little individual pieces of chum. Well, sometimes it can be a pain. Let's say I want to move all of these pieces. Well, I could left click on my slide and then drag over top of all those objects to highlight all of them together and then move them if I wanted to. Or highlight them one time, then I can actually go to Arrange and then Group, and that actually grouped all of those individual objects into one object. So now I can just grab anywhere within that object and I can move it around, and actually I can do Control C, Control V, and now I've just doubled my chum size. So let's make this really big here. So now I have all this chum, and just because I can, I'm going to highlight them, arrange them, and make them one big group. Now I have this big group of chum I can use. I'm going to put that right in the center of the water here. And what we're going to actually do is we're going to make it so the chum will appear as an animation, and it'll actually kind of float into the slide. And then we're going to have a fish enter the slide and eat the chum. So let's go to Insert, Online Pictures. See if we can find a cool fish to use for our example. I want one that has its mouth open. This would actually be a cool one, I think. Alright, so he's going to have to be a little bit bigger. See, that one's kind of pixelated. I'm not actually going to use that one. If you have an image that's really small, it can really lose its quality as you stretch it. So let's find a good one here. I think this one will work. Alright, so let's first actually do our animation for our chum. So we'll click on it, left click, hit the Animations tab, and let's see what animation we can use for this. Let's have it float in. And you see this effect options here? I can choose different animations, give you different options. For the float in, I can float from the bottom up or from the top down. Since chum would usually be dropping into the water, I'll say float down. So this should actually float in to the slide, kind of like that. Let's actually preview it. Perfect. So now, I'm trying to get this fish to be behind it. Okay. But now I'm going to send this to the back. Sometimes it's kind of a game of moving things back and forth to get them how you want them. Okay, so now my chum's going to appear, and then I'll have my fish float in and then eat the chum. So when you have animations like that, you want to have your animation on the slide where you want it to end up after the animation takes place. So I'll left click on him, go to Animations, and then I'm going to have him fly in. And I have more options here, you see, and I want him to come from the right. So since he's facing left, I'll have him float in from the right, and that's going to be after the chum enters the slide. So chum is the one animation, then we have the fish as the two. So let's do a preview. After previewing it, to me the fish came in kind of too quick. You can actually go up here and select your objects, and you can adjust the delay and duration of your animation. So if I make this duration a little longer, then he should appear to enter the slide slower. So let's try it again. That's a little bit better. Let's make it like 1 second. See how looks. That's a little better. So now let's go to preview this slide. I'll hit my down, the chum enters the water, and my fish comes in and eats it. So that's just some cool things you can do with your different animations. Sometimes what I like to do, if I'm happy with the slide I just created and I want to kind of play around with some other settings without breaking the slide that I think I'm probably going to keep, I like to right click and duplicate my slide, and now I can play around with this one, and if I mess it up past the point of no return, then I still have this original slide to fall back to. So just to show you how you can do custom animations, I'm going to put the fish here, go to animations, and then go all the way down to custom paths. So custom paths, you're going to click where you want your path to start, and I'm going to make this fish jump out of the water, and then you left click one time where you want your path to change. So I clicked once here, and I'm going to click up here once, and then I'm going to have it come back into the water, and then back up, and then land on our chum. And when you're done with your path, you're going to double left click, and that's going to show you your actual custom path. So now you can see that that object followed that custom path that I created with my animation. So that one is kind of quick, so I'll make that like 3. And let's actually watch it from the beginning of the slide. Whew. So there you go. So that's a custom path animation. So now you have an idea. I could spend days going through all the different animations, but you really just got to play with them. Me, for the type of presentations I usually do, I kind of have like maybe 4 or 5 that I typically always use. I use a lot of custom paths. I'm using fade, my fly in and outs, and my float in and outs. So since I like this original slide we made, I'm going to just click on this one, hit the delete key, and delete it. At this point, just to make sure that I don't lose my work, I'm going to do Control S to save it, or you could go up here, hit save, or even say file and then save. If you're editing an existing presentation, then you want to do a save as, so you make like a new version of your PowerPoint. But I'm just going to do Control S, and I'm going to save this as my Learn How to Fish PowerPoint, and it defaults to the right type of file, your PPTX file. I'll hit save, and now I know that if something happens, my computer loses battery power or whatever, I have my PowerPoint saved to the folder that I want to, so I can reopen it at a later time. Alright, so on to our next slide. I'm going to right click on our last slide and say new slide. This one is going to be about what time of year is fishing the best. And then if you look here, one thing I didn't show you is that you can insert objects directly from these icons. You can insert a table, a chart, smart graphic, or even your pictures. Let's do a chart. We're going to make a chart for what time of the year is the best for fishing. Let's see. You can do a pie chart, a bar chart. I'm liking the column chart, so I'm just going to say OK. And then it pops up with a Excel spreadsheet of what information you want to fill into your chart. So I'm going to make these months, so I'll say in March, whoops, man, cannot spell, April, May, and then June, and then we'll categorize it for type of fish, so I'll say bass, walleye, and pike. Then I'll make the title Fishing Statistics. So there you go, just like that, I was able to integrate a chart with some actual data into our slide. I can right click on here and say edit data. Maybe I want to say in March there were actually 6 bass caught, 2 walleye and 3 pike. And you can see how it automatically adjusted my chart information. For our next slide, we're going to use a comparison slide. So let's go up here to new slide, and you see this comparison slide, which of course could be used to compare two topics. Select that, and this one is going to be smallmouth bass versus largemouth bass. Smallmouth So since we picked a comparison themed slide, you see that there's already these text boxes ready to use to add our comparison data. So of course smallmouth basses have small mouths, brownish color, then really what you could do here, since we're going to have some similar bullets in our largemouth bass text box, we can just left click and highlight this text, say Control C, go over here and click in our text box under largemouth bass, and then hit Control V to paste it in. And then we can just edit what we need to. So these have large mouths. They're more of a greenish color. So for this slide, it already had these predefined text boxes, of course. If we wanted to add an additional text box to a slide, we could go to Insert, click on the text box icon, and then wherever we click, a new text box will be inserted. And you can take that text box and put it wherever you want in your slide. Okay, for our next slide, I'm actually going to change this to be a different layout. If you create a new slide and it happens to not be the layout that you're looking for, you can right click on it and just go to change the slide theme. So this one's just going to be, let's make it just a title and content slide. And this is going to be a fishing tutorial. So for this example, I want to show you two things. First, how to insert videos into your slides, and even cooler than that, screen recordings, which can obviously be a very powerful tool for presenting. Let's start with inserting a video. We go to the Insert tab, over to the video option, and we're going to choose an online video. We can search right from YouTube, so we'll say fishing tutorial. This one looks cool. So once the video is inserted, then you can go up here to preview your media, and you hit play, and then it will finally bring the video up. Hit play on the video, and there you go. You have a video playing inside your PowerPoint. We'll leave the video here, and we're going to duplicate this slide here. I'm going to click on the video and delete it. So now we can add our screen recording tutorial. I couldn't really think of an awesome example for using a screen recording for a fishing tutorial, so we're just going to use Microsoft Paint here. Let me go back. Okay, so first we'll go to Insert, and then we have the screen recording option. So we're going to hit screen recording, and now we have to select an area to record on our screen, which it happened to minimize PowerPoint, and it brought up the last application I had running, which was Microsoft Paint. So I'm fine with the selected area, so I can just hit record here, and then it shows us hit Windows Shift key to stop it. So I'm recording. I can still navigate in my application, so I can show you how to catch a fish here. Ta-da! That's my fishing tutorial. I know it's kind of lame, but hey, we're just worried about the screen recording here. Okay, so now that I've recorded my awesome fishing tutorial that's going to teach millions of people how to fish, I can hit Windows key, Shift, and Q, and it's going to stop the recording. And then when I go back to my PowerPoint, I now have my recording. So hit play. Let me mute it so you don't have to hear myself anymore. And you can see everything that was on my computer during the screen recording. In addition to inserting videos into our PowerPoints, we can also insert audio files. Audio files can be recordings that you record right from PowerPoint and then later insert it into your PowerPoint. Or you can actually upload audio directly from your PC. Maybe you want to use a sound effect on certain slides, or this is useful for if you want to have background music playing during your entire PowerPoint presentation. Just to show you what I mean, if we say audio on my PC, I have a Creative Commons audio file here. I'm actually going to go to my first slide and insert the audio there. And once the audio's there, you can move it around. I like to have it in the bottom right hand corner just so it's out of sight. And then it takes you to this Audio Tools tab, and you have all these different options with your audio. By default, it's going to be on click, meaning that you would actually have to click the audio icon while you're doing your presentation, or you can say automatically, and as you go through your slides, the audio will play along with your presentation. If you wanted to play music in the background for your entire presentation, then you could select play in background. If you hover over that, you can see that it says set the audio clip to continuously play across your slides in the background. So we'll select that option, and I'll show you what I mean here. So you can hear the audio music playing in the background there. And of course you would just adjust your computer audio for how loud you wanted to play the music running in the background. You don't want to have it too loud, or else it's drowning out what you're actually talking about as you go through your presentation. Couple important customizations that you can do with your audio. You definitely don't want to have your audio playing and the song runs out and then boom, you have no audio. It's kind of embarrassing. So this is kind of a important option here. If you're playing a continuous song in the background throughout your slide, you'd want to use this rewind after playing. What that does is it will actually start the audio over from the beginning and replay it. So then it's going to be on a continuous loop throughout your presentation. So you want to do that. You can also trim the audio. Let's say that you have an audio file and you only want to use the first half of it. Then you can trim it, and then just the first half of your audio will continuously loop. And then hit OK, and that's the audio time that it will use in the PowerPoint. You can also have the audio fade in or fade out. It's a smoother transition to have it fade in. I like to have it fade at like 0.50 or something, and then you can have it fade out as well. Okay, so at this point we're really close to finishing our PowerPoint. There are a couple more things I want to go over. One key thing can be the find and replace feature. Let's say that you realized after you created 100 slides that you misspelled one single word. You can actually go to find and replace. And let's say that I realized I wanted to replace fish with PHISH, fish. Replace all. And just like that, it went through my whole document, and anywhere where it found the word fish, then it replaced it with the wrong spelling of fish. If you want to revert any changes that you've made, you can either go to the top left corner and hit the undo button, or you can use a keyboard shortcut by hitting Control Z, and that will revert the last change that you made on your PowerPoint. Alright, now that we've completed our slides, we're ready to add some finishing touches before we finalize our presentation. If you go to the Transitions tab up top, you have these different transition options to choose from. So every time you switch slides, you can have it transition with a fade or just pop right up, use random bars. Typically you would have the same transition between all of your slides, but just to show you an example of some of the different transitions, I'll apply different transitions to each of these slides here. And alright, so we'll left click on our first slide, go to our slideshow tab, and to preview our slideshow we'll just say from the beginning. And you see how the first slide swiped in from the bottom? Then we have rolling bars for our second slide. I'll just kind of zoom through these so you can see what the different transitions look like. That's actually probably one of my favorite ones right there. And that one I think was nothing, so that's why we didn't see a transition there. If we wanted to clear the transitions on all of our slides, you can left click on any of the slides in the left column here, and we can use one of our keyboard shortcuts by hitting Control A, and that's going to select all of my slides. So if I want to make a change to all of my slides, like a transition, then I could do Control A, which will select all of the slides, and then I'll say none, just to clear out all my transitions, or I could just pick the transition that I want to apply to all of them. So let's apply, if you hit the drop arrow here, you can actually see that there's a lot more transitions than just the ones in the main row up top. Let's try the vortex and see what that looks like. See, so you can really get creative with your transitions. My suggestion would be to go through all of them to figure out which ones are your favorite. I'm just going to use the fall over one for now. I'll do Control A to pick all my slides, and then I'll apply this transition to all of my slides. Go to slideshow and play it from the beginning just to make sure that I applied the transition correctly. And there you go. Alright, so at this point we can do Control S to save our project, or hit the save button up top, and your slideshow is ready to present. If you wanted to present in front of an audience, you would either be sharing your screen through a teleconference application, or maybe you would have your computer hooked up to a projector in a conference room. And right now, if I was ready to start presenting, I would click slideshow and say from the beginning, and I would be ready to start presenting, and you would just click your down arrow as you wanted to go through each slide. I would just click through my PowerPoint wherever it made sense for me to begin my next topic. So if I wanted to talk about lures, I would just click through that animation and continue on. And then just keep hitting your down arrow to go through the next slides. And any animations that are triggered on clicks, don't forget to click your down arrow so that your animation takes place. So that's how you would just do a manual PowerPoint presentation. Well, we can actually record our PowerPoint presentation, and you could actually save your PowerPoint as a video. So maybe you wanted to create an explainer video or something, and you weren't going to be presenting it live, and you wanted to just save it to distribute it out for everybody to see. We could actually say start recording from beginning. So now that we're recording, as we go through this, I'll just kind of talk through these slides so that we have some audio in the recording, but you could, in the comfort of your own home, without any pressure, just go through your whole PowerPoint and talk through each of the slides. And then when you're done, close your recording. And then you'll see this media option pop up in the bottom right. And if I were to actually just play it, I'll just kind of talk through these slides so that you can hear the audio that it picked up on during this slide. And if you look at these 3 slides I actually went through for the example, it has the audio that it picked up for when I was on each of those slides. So now if we preview this time I'm not going to click through it. I'm just going to go from beginning and just let it play, because since I have a recording, it'll actually play from the recording. I'll just kind of, we have some audio in the recording, but you could, so just by recording your slideshow, you can have it all ready to go. And then when you're done, if you wanted to save it as a video, you could go to File, Export, and then Create Video. So I'll say Create Video. I have a test one from earlier there, and I'll say, I'll just call this the final edit. Hit Save. Continue without some of the media that I can't include in it. And if you look down below here, it's creating the video to an MP4 file right now. So give it about a minute or so, depending on how big your PowerPoint is. It can take kind of a while. Once that's done, then we'll check out our MP4 video of our PowerPoint presentation. Alright, our video is finally done being created. Let me pull it up here. We have some audio in the recording, but you could, and there you go. So you have a video of your PowerPoint presentation. Well, that's it. My best piece of advice for doing your PowerPoints is, if you're going to, do a live presentation in front of an audience, definitely go through your PowerPoint slide a few times first, because you'll always end up finding one animation that's in the wrong order or something that you want to catch before you're in front of an audience, because I did it myself many times, and it's the worst thing in the world when you're finding errors in your PowerPoint while you're presenting it. So I hope you had fun and learned a lot about PowerPoint presentations. If you have any questions, feel free to message me and I'll help you out the best that I can. Take care.